Today's episode of The Bitcoin Show is brought to you by Mt. Gox, mtgox.com, and Bitcoin Bonus, bitcoinbonus.com, and Cablesaurus, cablesaurus.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bitcoin Show. We are back today. We have a very special guest with us. His name is Dan OConnor, and he is running for U.S. Congress here in New York City in 2012. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So, tell us how. Let's see. This is the Bitcoin Show, so it's all about Bitcoin. But I know that we have a lot of similar synergistic issues and goals and things in mind. So first, tell us about you and tell us about your story, and then we'll talk about Bitcoin.
Okay, sure. Well, first, thanks for having me on. As you mentioned, I am running for U.S. Congress here in New York City. It's New York District 12, so it encompasses parts of Queens, parts of Brooklyn, and also parts of downtown Manhattan, Chinatown, and it goes down and borders on Wall Street. So there are about 100,000 Chinese people in my district, and that's going to be my target.
100,000 out of how many people total in your district?
Okay, so there are over 600,000 eligible voters in the district, but many of them are not registered to vote. And of the 100,000 Chinese people in the district will be my focus, as I lived in China for 6 years. I speak Mandarin. I also speak Cantonese. And I've been covered by the Chinese newspaper quite a lot already.
Yeah, which is really cool because we talked about this before, that I lived in Taipei, Taiwan for almost 2 years, and I probably know 6 or 8 words in Mandarin. So enough to impress a waitress. For sure to look at me and go, what? They don't even understand. They're like, it's like hearing a horse talk. They're not used, right? They're not used to seeing a normal American white guy speaking Chinese.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've been living in Chinatown for about a year now, and most of the district knows me already, and I'm running around, I'm talking to different store owners and shop owners, and a lot of district already knows who I am already, and I get a lot of videos of myself, engage with the community, talking to the community in Chinese, and just coming to better understand the people.
Cool. So you're a liberty-minded guy. In our audience, obviously, the Bitcoin community is very liberty-minded, obviously. I mean, that's kind of it goes hands in hands with the Bitcoin sort of, I guess, philosophy or whatever you want to call it, hive mind. And you're running as a Democrat, and that's unique, isn't it?
It is. It is unique. A lot of the Democratic voters and Democratic voters in general agree with a lot of my positions. However, there are certain positions of mine that do not fall within the typical Democratic political spectrum. And this is part of what I'm hoping to accomplish in my campaign. Yeah. I am hoping to transcend party lines and to shake up the political debate and challenge the political establishment. Right. A lot of people in the country are sick of the Republican Democrat back and forth. Yeah. Set views in the Democratic Party, set views in the Republican Party, back and forth. Most Americans are in fact sick of this. Yeah. And this is part of what I'm trying to accomplish in my campaign.
It seems like a ridiculous game. You have to be on the red team or the blue team, and you might agree with one thing over here and one thing over there. A lot of the important things everybody agrees on, or the majority agree on, but they have to be on the blue team or the red team in order to get elected.
Exactly.
That's the thing. You're not going to have any influence or power to do anything, to make any change, unless you're elected, and you're not going to get elected unless you pick the blue team or the red team, right? Such a silly game that we play here.
Absolutely.
With a two-party system.
That summarizes it quite well, Bruce. Yeah.
I had this thought the other morning was, I wonder if our founding fathers decided that there was going to be a party system in the first place, and that there were going to be two parties, or how that actually happened. I don't know.
It's actually a good thing you mentioned it, because all of them were opposed to parties. Specifically, John Adams was the most outspoken against parties. Jefferson was very much against parties. George Washington was very much against parties. And as many of us know, the party system has evolved very much over the years. So the modern day Democrat in America is
Yeah.
completely different than what the Democrat looked like 150 years ago.
Yeah.
In fact, Andrew Jackson was the first Democratic president, and he was also the only president to successfully abolish the central bank of the United States in the early 1830s.
In the early 1830s, he abolished the central bank. There was a central bank before that.
He did. He effectively abolished the central bank, and the main way that he was able to succeed in that is that he drew attention to all of the corruption surrounding the bank, and all of the favors of all of those connected to the bank and associated with the bank. And this enraged the people, because people, regardless of party line, people don't like corruption.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, I think this is a lot of what we're seeing nowadays in the modern or very recent Occupy Wall Street movement.
When we fail to learn from history, it repeats itself. Well, it repeats itself probably anyway, but I didn't even know that there was a central bank before 1913 in the U.S. I didn't even... Is that how it was from the beginning?
In fact, the central bank was the hottest political discussion or topic in the first 100 years of American politics.
Wow.
And in the past 100 years of American politics, hardly anyone discusses monetary policy. Hardly anyone discusses, whether or not there should be a Federal Reserve Bank. But in the first, let's say, 30 or 40 years, this was the discussion. They had it. They started with Alexander Hamilton in the early 1790s. And he was the biggest advocate or outspoken proponent of the central bank. And then Jefferson was the biggest opponent of it. And he effectively abolished it in 1813. I'm sorry, 1811. And it came back in 1816 with a 20-year charter. And when Jackson took office, this was the main part of his campaign platform, to abolish the bank.
To abolish it.
Because of all of the corruption that surrounded it.
Wow. Sounds like history repeating itself. One can only hope. Interesting. That's amazing. So we're going to, I may as well take this opportunity to announce, because I haven't yet, is that we're going to be launching 2 new shows. I already told you about it, but we're going to launch 2 new shows here on Only One TV. One is called, we're going to call Global Central Bankers, globalcentralbankers.com. And that's going to be a show specifically about the central banks of our planet, and primarily the Fed, but all of them, and who these bankers are, just kind of exposing to the world these nameless or faceless people. Who are these people? We call them the powers that be, but nobody really knows that, really who they are, and they don't even know that they are the central bankers that are pulling all these strings. So we're going to do a show that's kind of like expose kind of show, outing these guys. Who are they? What are they like? What do they control? How do they control it? Where do they live? How do they play their games? And so that's going to be a really fascinating new show called Global Central Bankers. So I'll probably want to have you back on to talk about that, because you're very well versed in that. And another new show called The Occupy Show, because it's very apropos. I've been down to Occupy Wall Street, as you mentioned, like 5 times now. It's very, very exciting. The energy is amazing. One of my favorite videos so far is when they booed Geraldo Rivera and Fox News right out of Liberty Square. Fox News lies, Fox News lies. Just go to YouTube and type in Occupy Rivera. Oh my gosh, that is just it's just so cool. Have you ever seen in the United States of America a mob of people booing a celebrity out and not letting them speak? I think it's great. Don't let them speak. They speak lies, get them out of there. It's like, this is what democracy looks like. That's what they say. So anyway, we're going to do a show called Occupy Show, which is we're going to actually have people from the Occupy movement, the leaders of the different working groups come. We're going to interview them here or there, whatever's more feasible, and then also occasionally have people do a little soapbox about what their opinions are, because everyone has a right to speak down there, except for Geraldo apparently. But anyway, they speak enough. We know what they have to say. So you've been down to Occupy Wall Street. Sure. What did you think? I saw your video on your Facebook page. So, what was your feeling when you went down there? Like, what was your perception?
Sure. I went down for my first time on Sunday, just a couple of days ago, and it was fantastic. I don't think there's any way to summarize everyone's views because there is a huge assortment of opinions and views. But generally, it's a lot of people are just very unhappy with the system right now.
Yeah.
People are very unhappy with the economy. Everyone has their list of complaints, and they come out and they voice them. And I think it's fantastic. And I think this is where real change comes from in America, from the grassroots, from discontent, from people getting up and taking action. So it's very exciting. And for me, with my district being right on the border of Wall Street, I'm definitely going to be part of this. And my opponent, who I'm challenging, is actually very entrenched with the banking system in general. She consistently receives a ton of campaign donations from the banking establishment. So they keep her in office. And she also sits on the finance committee in D.C., and she receives her largest donor is Goldman Sachs. And, she opposed a bill to audit the Federal Reserve Bank so that people couldn't actually see what was going on in there. And she supported the bailouts. And bailouts are extremely unpopular. Democratic voters, Republican voters, the people are not happy with bailouts. And I think this is also a part of why people are down at Wall Street. Trillions of dollars being injected into the banks. Trillions of dollars being sent and shipped to central banks globally.
What's your opponent's name? What's her name?
My opponent's name is Nydia Velázquez.
Okay.
And
so I can say one good thing about her. She's consistent, it sounds like. Very very predictable and consistent, if bought and paid for, maybe. I mean, Goldman Sachs is a common denominator in everything that, I was just reading that of the paper derivatives or whatever, the paper gold and silver that they're flooding the market with to suppress the value of gold and silver. Something they said that 80% of it, isn't it 80% of it is owned by Goldman Sachs, and the other 20% is HSBC. Only two owners, 80% Goldman Sachs, 20% HSBC. It's very clear what's going on. But what I love,
and coincidentally, a lot of the recent appointees to the Treasury, the federal government, are very, very closely affiliated to Goldman Sachs, ex-Goldman Sachs employees.
It's incestuous. They go back, I was like, they're just absolutely, not only in bed, but in bed making love 24/7, and they're going back and forth. They're federal employees, then they're private bankers, and then they're regulators, and then they're private bankers. They go back and forth, and oh my God, it's totally incestuous. And it's a pyramid of power and wealth that, I think the global central bankers are the ones on the top, though, because all of these, if you basically own every horse in the race, you don't care who wins, and if you can print money, then you have all the money in the world to control everyone, starting with the President of the United States, the government, all of the agencies that come under that, all the politicians. And obviously that includes the intelligence and the homeland and the military and everything there. And the private, the global corporations, not all corporations, not the flower shop on the corner, not your small business or Main Street shops. Those are the ones that are the victims that are being put out of business. But the global evil-doing corporations that we're all very aware of. They own and control that and, pay off and all that stuff, right? So... am I putting words in your mouth? I'm sorry. These are my opinions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this is a lot of the sentiments that are, being expressed down at Occupy Wall Street. And this has been going on for many, many decades. But fortunately, given things like the internet, more and more people are actually aware of it.
Right.
Because the mainstream media doesn't cover this stuff.
No.
The mainstream media doesn't mention where the actual Federal Reserve came from. The Federal Reserve Bank was actually created by bankers. It wasn't created by the American people.
No, it's not part of the government. And I've heard that there's a thing called the Federal Reserve Board, but and those people are appointed, but that has absolutely nothing to do with the Federal Reserve. They have absolutely no authority over the Federal Reserve. It'd be like me starting an organization and calling it Boy Scouts of America Board, and it has nothing to do with the Boy Scouts of America. Like, what? What is that? They use these words, like the word federal and reserve. It was very carefully chosen so that it would sound governmental and it would sound like a good thing. Reserve. Oh, that sounds like a good thing. Your reserve gas tank. It's a good thing. No, it's a bad thing. They should have just called it Walmart, which is what it is. It's just a corporation that's private. It is a global private corporation, right? I mean, it's just, and they really hold all the power.
But fortunately, more and more people are catching on to this, and more and more people are aware of it.
Yeah.
Things like trillions of dollars, biggest money printing spree in history. These things help to bring attention to it. The source of the problem.
Right.
The Federal Reserve Bank overprinted, and they kept interest rates too low, and they created the housing bubble.
Yeah.
And some of us, economists actually predicted this and saw it coming, and now people, in retrospect, are finally starting to realize and put the pieces together that the Federal Reserve did create the housing bubble. This is why we are still in an economic depression. 3-4 years now. The government solutions did not work. People put their confidence in the government and the government's ability to correct the economy, and people have finally accepted the fact that it failed.
And then, but really, it was all the power and control was on the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and that has nothing to do with the government, except it's control of the government. So yeah, it's just ridiculous. I'm convinced that whole thing was planned. I really believe that was planned as a money grab, because if you want to. The easiest way to grab people's money is to foreclose on them. So, just to take their property. So if you just loan money out in mass to everybody, people that aren't going to be able to pay it back, then it's just an entrap. It's a trap. It's an entrapment thing. So that everybody can buy this stuff. We give you a loan, and then we just take it back, and now we own the property. And a lot of people think that the Great Depression was planned too. I mean, most of the banks were not members of the Federal Reserve before that, but afterwards, the Federal Reserve only bailed out their members, and then they could buy, for pennies on the dollar, they could buy all the other banks, and now they're all Federal Reserve members almost. And we just saw this in the past few years as well. The big banks got to gobble up the smaller banks. And because they get, J.P. Morgan gets $25 billion in bailout money. Wells Fargo gets $25 billion in bailout money. Same thing happened with the savings and loan crisis in the 1980s. Too big to fail.
The big ones gobble up the small ones.
It's a system that works, and that's why it repeats itself. I think it's a 100-year plan. It's like, it's just obvious that they sit around all day. These bankers, these central bankers, are not stupid guys. They're very, very smart, and they do study history, and they know what works. Let's make a plan over the next 50 years to how can we grab up more wealth. But that's what happens when people, and it's not just a few. I mean, there are just a few at the top, but I believe that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you go down, and there's too much greed going all the way down. People get too greedy, and they just push and push and push the people too far, and that's what we're seeing now. I mean, you're going to see riots in the street. Well, we are sort of, So far, the only violence I've seen is perpetuated by the police. People are extremely peaceful, and they're trying to promote, peaceful protest. But we've seen the police get very aggressive and quarantine people off and mace them for absolutely no reason. Innocent young girls and even children arrested, and trapping them, and then arresting one by one, more than 700 people on the Brooklyn Bridge. And then the media, the mainstream media, which is corporate media, is owned by 5 guys or whatever that are owned by all the way up the pyramid. They didn't even report any of this. I mean, if they even mentioned it, it was negative. It's like, oh, look at this, a few hippies and this and that, and just joking and mocking and ridiculing them. But now it's growing and growing and growing, and now they can't ignore it.
Exactly. And I agree with you. I agree with you that from what I've seen, the people have been very peaceful, and the people have not been aggressive. And I've also, what I'm also anticipating is that the media will try to place one sort of group label on these people. It is certainly by no means a consensus. No. Similar to what they try to do with the Tea Party. They try to put some sort of group label on the Tea Party. I by no means associate myself with the Tea Party, but I can acknowledge that there is a mixed group of opinions and sentiments within the Tea Party.
There always is. One huge difference between Occupy movement and everything else is the direct democracy, the philosophy of the direct democracy thing. Because there's a broad variety of views, of course, but there are some common denominators that come up more often than others. But the direct democracy thing, where they hear everyone and they vote on things by consensus every day. They have at least one general assembly every single day, and this is just like this beautiful thing that's just organically sprung up, and not organized by any group or party or whatever they're accusing, they're claiming, who's behind it. No, who's behind it is the American people are behind it, and the 21-year-olds, especially the 21-year-olds. They're smarter. These 21-year-olds are out there, and they are more. They understand better how things really work than probably most of the 63-year-olds ever will. Because of the internet. They educate themselves on the internet. I'm not talking about Facebook, I'm talking about the internet. The internet is the world's largest university. It's a self-service university. But if you're smart and you have time and you study the internet, you Google, you can really, really learn how things work. And they are. These kids, I call them kids, but you ask them, they're 21. And they, of course, not everybody is. Now everybody's joining in. But the 21-year-olds were the leaders in this thing. And they really understand how things work. So it's fascinating. I want to talk more about your platform and also about Bitcoin and how your interest in Bitcoin. But I want to thank our sponsors really quick first, because of course without them we wouldn't be here. So thank you, Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox is mtgox.com. Very appropriately, Mt. Gox has something like 90% market share in the world of buying and selling Bitcoins for normal currency. So they have something like 16 currencies that you can buy Bitcoins in dollars, yen, you name it, almost every currency that's popular. You can buy Bitcoin for cash or cash for Bitcoin, buy and sell Bitcoin online from the comfort of your easy chair without leaving home. So for very, very small fees and super secure. They've been around the longest and they have the largest market share, and we thank them for sponsoring the Bitcoin show. They also have two-factor authentication. It's a fancy term, which means you get this little teeny tiny dongle thing that is on your keyring, and it plugs into your USB port. So you can log on anywhere, a cyber cafe, the internet terminal at the lobby of the hotel, anywhere. Any computer could be full of viruses, doesn't matter, because you log on with your ID and password and you have to stick in this USB thing, and you touch the button and it puts in a one-time use password that's only good for 2 seconds. So you can log in and do your account, your stuff you got to do on Mt. Gox, and the virus can steal your password all day. It won't matter because they won't be able to log in again. So it's super, super secure, more secure than normal banking, and it's all about Bitcoin. So that's the place to buy and sell Bitcoin online, mtgox.com, mtgox.com. We thank those guys for being our sponsors. And Bitcoin Bonus. BitcoinBonus.com is the place for kickbacks. You can shop online. I shouldn't use that word with a congressman here to be, but but anyway, it's a rebate. If you shop online, who doesn't shop online, right? People are buying everything online now. It doesn't matter, you can go to like Amazon.com and Buy.com and every major online merchant that you go to, right before you go to check out, go back to BitcoinBonus.com and type in the name of that merchant, find the button there. You click the button there and you order it through their link, and you're going to get Bitcoins paid back to you as sort of an extra bonus rebate. Costs you nothing. It costs absolutely nothing. You get Bitcoins for nothing just by using Bitcoin Bonus, their referral links for all your online shopping. So check out BitcoinBonus.com. And Cablesaurus. Cablesaurus.com. It sounds, it's Cable, S-A-U-R-U-S, Cablesaurus.com, and they sell cables and they sell mining gear. They sell all kinds of peripherals and equipment. And they accept Bitcoin, of course. So we thank Cablesaurus for being a loyal sponsor as well. So, all right. So let's talk about your campaign. What's the, I guess, what do you stand for? What do you represent?
Right. So, as mentioned, my district is extremely diverse. Very large Hispanic community, Chinese community, Black community, Hasidic Jewish community. and it's quite exciting to be in New York City. In the heart of all the action, and right there in the near the on the border of the financial district, in the media capital of the world, and to really basically. My campaign is devoted to the Chinese community. I want to enfranchise the Chinese people.
How have they been disenfranchised? What do the Chinese people want that's unique or special, different?
Well, my district has the largest concentration of Chinese people of any district in America, and it's the oldest Chinese district. Chinatown. It's been there for a very, very long time, and generally the Chinese people do not engage in elections for the most part, and but there are a handful that do, and more, especially given the economy. This is the most important thing to the Chinese people. The economy, the cost of living,
right?
Employment, education, and I offer solutions to these issues for them. Employment, obviously, I want to change what's been going on and stop all of these solutions that we've been doing, and look at non-governmental solutions, because the government solutions have all failed. Also, when it comes to the cost of living, the Chinese people understand that when the federal government or the Federal Reserve Bank prints trillions of dollars, their cost of living will increase. And their cost of living has significantly increased in the past few years, especially in New York City. My district is middle income, lower income families, and when they see the Federal Reserve Bank printing trillions of dollars, they know that their goods are going to go up in price, and it's hurting them. And in addition to that, the other main focal point will be education, in which I want to introduce school vouchers, tax credits for education, giving teachers and parents more of a say in their children's education.
So they can select their own school and have free market competition between schools, so that parents can give better education to their kids.
Yes.
Is that right?
Give the parents more of a say.
Yeah.
Give the teachers more of a say.
Yeah.
Not bureaucrats.
Right.
Not politicians who choose the curriculum, who choose the standards, who choose the tests.
And all the money goes to the bureaucrats instead of the teachers.
Yes.
It's like crazy.
And the education system in the district has just gone down, and no one's happy with it.
Yeah.
So I want to empower the parents and empower the teachers to have more of a say.
Yeah.
And rather than applying some sort of universal standard for such a diverse group of students and children, which they try to do, give them more of an options. No universal standards.
Right.
And this is the way New York City used to be.
Yeah. And I think that I gather that the Chinese community is not real hip on banking and in general, bankers, and or maybe they're hip to it and that's why they're not hip on it. I remember this anecdotally. I was looking for a safety deposit box, and I forget what it was. I was looking for one that had long hours or something, and the bank said, well, the only branch that we have long hours is in Chinatown. And so I called another bank, and they said, well, the only branch that we have that has long hours is in Chinatown. Every bank I called, and I'm like, what the heck is going on with Chinatown? So I was like, okay, fine. So I went to Chinatown and opened a bank, a safety deposit box or whatever. This is a few years back. But one of the things I accidentally discovered is that these banks in Chinatown have like 3 floors, like 40,000 safety deposit boxes in each branch, because the Chinese community, they just don't trust the banks. Intelligently, they don't trust the bankers, and so I think that Bitcoin actually could be a real good thing for them when they discover it. I mean, they may not trust Bitcoin initially. They're going to have to learn about what it is. But we're going to be actually doing this educational basics of Bitcoin thing down at the Occupy Wall Street every Saturday, starting this coming Saturday. So that's going to be exciting. So we're going to educate people about the basics of Bitcoin.
Excellent.
They actually contacted me and
fantastic.
asked me to do a video about it, so I've done that. But I'm going to actually go down there. We're going to do hands-on things about teaching people what Bitcoin is and helping them install it on their laptops and their smartphones and stuff like that. So, so you're very liberty-minded, running as a Democrat. What do you like? What are your feelings about Bitcoin? And
Sure.
How long have you? I mean, like you're kind of new to discovering it, but what do you think about it so far?
Well, first, just to comment on your point about the Chinese people and their distrust for banks. You're absolutely right. And Chinese people really they trust themselves. They trust their families. They trust those people close to them.
Yeah.
But they don't trust the government to manage their money.
Right.
And they like to keep their money in deposit, safety deposit boxes, and they save money. They save a lot of money.
Big savings,
there is
yeah.
no government-run Social Security in China, so
They're
they
not
have
big
to
on
save
that.
money
Yeah.
for when they're older, and it actually works.
Yeah. Like
They save money.
Like my grandparents, they were all about saving, not about debt.
And Americans are all about debt and credit, and Chinese people they don't like debt. They don't like credit. They save money.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be learned from that. This is the
Yeah.
way America used to be.
That's right.
Before things like Social Security were introduced. But in terms of Bitcoin, I think it's extremely fascinating. I think the people I've spoken with, I haven't heard anyone that a single negative thing about it. I'm very interested in learning more about it. But it's my understanding that the coolest thing about it, in my opinion, is the fact that it's completely decentralized.
Yeah, the bankers don't issue it. The government doesn't issue it. They can't control it. It's like zero transaction fees, effectively, and irreversible transactions and financial privacy. You don't need to get approved by anybody to open an account or something like that. You can do whatever you want with it, and nobody can shut you down because they don't like who you're donating to or what you're doing with your money, what you're buying or whatever. There's no like they're doing with WikiLeaks. So they're like shutting down PayPal and MasterCard, Visa, and Bank of America because they don't like you donating to WikiLeaks. Who's the government to tell you what to do with your money? So,
but there's no way to shut down Bitcoin, though.
No.
They'd have to shut down the entire internet.
That's right. They basically have to, and how can you can't do that? Because they would have to actually, not only make it illegal, they would have to actually confiscate every computer and smartphone, and it still would only be in that country. They would have to do it across the entire world. As long as two computers can connect, you've got a network, There's just no way they can shut it down that we know of yet. So it's very interesting possibilities of where Bitcoin's going to head.
I think the only problem I could see with Bitcoin is that not enough people know about it.
That's right. Exactly. That's why we're here. We're doing this. That's why I'm going down there and volunteering every Saturday to teach people the basics of Bitcoin. Because I think as Occupy Wall Street, liberty-minded people, all these movements are super synergistic with Bitcoin, and the people who would be most amenable to it need to be aware of it. So that's why we're going to be down there with a great big huge banner that says the Bitcoin Show, and people are going to go, what is that? And we'll be handing out flyers teaching people what Bitcoin is. And of course we're not selling anything. We're not, well, except for the show, but we're not selling anything commercially. It's just Bitcoin is a free open source software project, and nobody makes money off of it, off of people signing up for Bitcoin or anything, I suppose, unless you buy Bitcoin and the value goes up. But that's a good thing. I mean, it's like buying gold. The more people buy gold, that's good, I guess. But we're not directly selling anything.
Okay, so for my friends or whoever here in New York, where is Bitcoin accepted? Where can they use Bitcoin?
Yeah, there's I created a site called bitcoinme.com, bitcoinme.com. And you can go there and you can learn all about what is Bitcoin. There's tabs across the top. You can learn what is Bitcoin. You can learn how the easiest ways to buy it and sell it for currency, for dollars. How to accept it. Whether you have a restaurant or you're a massage therapist or whatever the heck you do, you can accept Bitcoin in your business without asking anybody permission. It's super easy to accept Bitcoin. And then there's also a shop tab that shows you all the places that you can shop and what you can buy. There's thousands and thousands of places online. There's one called, what is it called? Bitcoin Deals, bitcoindeals.com, which is like a new Amazon for Bitcoin. They have over 1 million, there's going to be a lot more, but right now it's already over 1 million items that you can buy with Bitcoin on this one website. Really slick, really good bargains too. We had him on. It's spreading
really
phenomenally
fast.
And also brick and mortar shops, like the Mezzi Grill is one of our sponsors, who's the world's first restaurant to accept Bitcoin. They're at 50, what are they at, 51 and 8, 9? 55 and 8. 55 and 8. 55th Street and 8th Avenue here, like 3 blocks south of Columbus Circle, Mezzi Grill. And they accept Bitcoin there. And they're actually now Hudson Eatery does, which is at 57 and 11, and Oak Crepes and Brooklyn, and more. They're springing up. There's another site called bitcoinnavigator.com, is that right? Bitcoinnavigator.com, which only shows the brick and mortar places that sell Bitcoin. They'll show you like on a little pin map, and it'll show you pictures, like a photo gallery of each place so that you can find them easily. So that more and more are springing up all the time. So it's exciting. And the new software and applications are coming out, which makes it easier and easier to buy and sell and trade and exchange Bitcoins.
On
and accept
phones
them.
as well now.
Yeah, on the smartphones, as well as the laptops and stuff, yeah. Yeah, the smartphone is the key to it because everybody has a smartphone in their pocket now almost. Yep. And the merchant can just have a smartphone sitting next to the cash register and boom. It's like a credit card terminal, but it's faster and easier.
That's excellent.
And we're out of time. Oh my gosh, he's telling me he's going, oh my God, we're out of time. I can't believe it. See, I told you, the time just flies by. So we're going to have you back on because I want you to be on the new show, the Global Central Bankers show. And then also we're going to be doing the Occupy show very frequently. So I want to have you back on to talk about this Occupy movement again as things can, progress.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much for joining us, Dan.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
Appreciate you taking the time. All right. And see you guys all tomorrow. Same time, The Bitcoin Show.
As I lived in China for 6 years, I speak Mandarin, I also speak Cantonese, and I've been covered by the Chinese newspaper quite a lot already.
Yeah, which is really cool because we talked about this before that I lived in Taipei, Taiwan for almost 2 years, and I probably know 6 or 8 words in Mandarin, so enough to impress a waitress. For her to look at me and go, "What?" They don't even understand. They're like, it's like hearing a horse talk. They're not used, right? They're not used to seeing a normal American white guy speaking Chinese.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've been living in Chinatown for about a year now, and most of the district knows me already, and I'm running around, I'm talking to different store owners and shop owners, and a lot of district already knows who I am already, and I get a lot of videos of myself engaged with the community, talking to the community in Chinese, and just coming to better understand the people.
Cool. So you're a liberty-minded guy, and our audience, obviously, the Bitcoin community. So tell us how. Let's see. This is the Bitcoin show, so it's all about Bitcoin. But I know that we have a lot of similar, synergistic issues and goals and things in mind. So first, tell us about you, and tell us about your story, and then we'll talk about Bitcoin.
Okay. Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me on. As you mentioned, I am running for U.S. Congress here in New York City. It's New York District 12, so it encompasses parts of Queens, parts of Brooklyn, and also parts of downtown Manhattan, Chinatown, and it goes down and borders on Wall Street. So there are about 100,000 Chinese people in my district, and that's going to be my target.
100,000 out of how many people total in your district?
Okay, so there are over 600,000 eligible voters in the district, but many of them are not registered to vote. And of the 100,000 Chinese people in the district will be my focus.
The community is very liberty-minded, obviously. I mean, that's kind of it goes, like I say, it goes hands in hands with the Bitcoin sort of, I guess, philosophy or whatever you want to call it, the hive mind. And you're running as a Democrat, and that's unique, isn't it?
It is. It is unique. A lot of the Democratic voters and Democratic voters in general agree with a lot of my positions. However, there are certain positions of mine that do not fall within the typical Democratic political spectrum. And this is part of what I'm hoping to accomplish in my campaign.
Yeah.
I am hoping to transcend party lines and to shake up the political debate and challenge the political establishment.
Right.
A lot of people in the country are sick of the Republican, Democrat, back and forth.
Yeah.
Set views in the Democratic Party, set views in the Republican Party,
Yeah.
back and forth. Most Americans are in fact sick of this,
Yeah.
and this is part of what I'm trying to accomplish in my campaign.
It seems like a ridiculous game. You have to be on the red team or the blue team, and you might agree with one thing over here and one thing over there. A lot of the important things everybody agrees on, or the majority agree on, but they have to be on the blue team or the red team in order to get elected.
Exactly.
That's the thing. You're not going to have any influence or power to do anything to make any change unless you're elected, and you're not going to get elected unless you pick the blue team or the red team, right? Such a silly game that we play here.
Absolutely.
With a two-party system.
That summarizes it quite well, Bruce. Yeah.
I had this thought the other morning was, I wonder if our founding fathers decided that there was going to be a party system in the first place, and that there were going to be two parties, or how that actually happened. I don't know.
You know, it's actually a good thing you mentioned it, because all of them were opposed to parties. Specifically, John Adams was the most outspoken against parties. Jefferson was very much against parties. George Washington was very much against parties. And
Today's episode of The Bitcoin Show is brought to you by Mt. Gox, mtgox.com, and Bitcoin Bonus, bitcoinbonus.com, and Cablesaurus, cablesaurus.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bitcoin Show. We are back today. We have a very special guest with us. His name is Dan O'Connor, and he is running for U.S. Congress here in New York City in 2012. Welcome, Dan.
thank you. Thanks for having me on.